I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. All will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. Dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Well, welcome, folks, to yet another day in the Corporation Nation. We're going to continue off where we left off yesterday with a little bit of peerage, a little bit of genealogical association, a little bit of that. I had an article, it was just the regular Yahoo News. How they call this stuff news is beyond me. But it says the 6 super chic other royals you need to know. Goes on to say, do you ever wonder who the other royals are? That untapped crop of regal stock who are just as youthful, beautiful, and chic as their ubiquitous British contemporaries. No offense, William and Kate, but there's far more to obsess over than the well-trodden fashions of the English aristocracy. You gotta be kidding me. This is disgusting. Take Queen Rania of Jordan's 17-year-old daughter, Princess Ayman bint Abdullah, who was photographed going to a ceremony this week, captivating style experts and paparazzi alike. These people don't do anything, you see, except dress up and look pretty and collect all of your wealth. Channeling Sofia Coppola and an effortless California girl, this beauty had us wanting more. So please feast your eyes on the following 6 other royals to watch. They are glamorous queens, handsome princes, and exotic stunners with great hair. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but this boils my blood. This is disgusting. It is idol worship. It is everything against humanity and nature. This is so wrong. So we got pictures of these people who, one of them is, a gentleman named Prince Carl Philip of Sweden, who apparently does nothing but has good hair and wears very quote-unquote handsome suits, and apparently likes to go and watch sports. Oh, that's what he does. That's about all he does. But he did serve as a lieutenant in the Swedish Navy, so there's that, I guess. I'm sure he was right in the middle of all the action. So it goes on and comes to a girl named Charlotte Casiraghi. Says she's the most famous of the bunch. She's Grace Kelly's granddaughter and the daughter of Princess Caroline of Monaco. Apparently, she's the most beautiful girl in the world. I have to tend to disagree. The Monaco royals are a very stylish bunch. Charlotte's aunt, Princess Charlene of Monaco, just missed the cut here. But this one has been wowing the world with her beauty and style from an early age. Staying true to her grandmother's spirit, she's very feminine, likes to play around with fashion. Her daytime clothes are often equestrian-inspired, but her many evening ensembles are dreamy, modern princess gowns. Meanwhile, all around her, all around Monaco, People are dying, families are dying, children are being killed in the name of the bloodline that she's a part of. See, this bothers me, folks. This is disgusting. This is what the fashion industry is. And maybe you missed the most important part here. She's Grace Kelly's daughter. And this is kind of what we were talking about the other day, with the fact that all of these actors in Hollywood that become famous, and we're going to talk about a lot of those today, they don't become famous because they just have a talent. No, it is an incestuous career. I can't tell you how many people, and when I was in Hollywood myself, fortunately I only wanted to work in the background. I didn't want to be an actor, so I got into the sound department. But I can't tell you how many actors I would see come to Hollywood and have this belief, almost like a belief in the American dream that there's some sort of realistic equality here that would allow just the average person from Kansas to come to Hollywood and become an actress or an actor. Of course, they all end up in restaurants. When someone says, hey, I'm an actor, you ask, jokingly and yet sadly seriously, oh, really, which restaurant? You know, this is the reality. And so many people go to Hollywood with these big dreams, never understanding that they don't have a shot. They don't have a chance. They might be an extra. They might even get a line or two in a script. Everybody's been in Law and Order. You see that on every resume. But truly, no one becomes famous because that is reserved for the American royalty, which in our case is the actress and the actor. Who else do they showcase here? Oh, let's see. How about... Oh, here's another one. How about Prince Rahim Aga Khan and Kendra Salwa Spears? Now, of course, we're talking about the grandson of Rita Hayworth. The immensely wealthy son of Prince Aga Khan and the grandson of Rita Hayworth. Miss Kendra Salwa Spears is a Seattle-born brand-new bride who was a top Ford model before the two wed in a quiet ceremony. Oh, it's just so fascinating. It's so disgusting. I'm sitting here looking at these people lavishing in wealth as their people starve. Because, you know, that's the moral aspect of wealth. You see, if you have wealth, if you hold land, if you have money, well, guess what? In our system, in our worldwide greedy, usurious banker system, that necessarily means that a lot of other people have nothing. That literally means that poverty is spread throughout the kingdom so that you can have a new dress and be on the front page of Yahoo. My God, this is our society. Why? I ask again, why do we put up with it? Why do we people still, in this day and age, recognize blood as royalty? Why do we allow government to be run by blood in this day and age? That's the question I'm posing today, because this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous that these people who do nothing are the heroes and the royalty and the celebrities. But again, we see a grandson of a famous actress. What's going on here? Well, again, we have to look and we have to see, how is this happening? You know, before we go into that, I want to read a couple Associated Press reports to finish up what we were talking about with Obama yesterday. And the Associated Press, well, actually, this is going to be from Ancestry.com. Already. Boy, the time goes quick. All right, folks, we'll be back. We'll talk about Mr. Obama and his genealogical roots. Stay with us.
Wake up, wake up. Wake up and look around you. We're lost in space.
Corporation Nation, and we are talking about Total Genealogical Immersion Part 2. Yes. One of my favorite subjects. You know, once I started studying this stuff, I couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down because I thought there's no way that I can keep turning over names and find out that every single person that's ever been famous, including the assassins who have assassinated presidents. This is a good example. The assassins who've actually assassinated the presidents were their cousins. It's just an amazing, amazing find. So let's read about our faithful president here now. Anastasia Taylor is a genealogist, at Ancestry.com. She says, we've all watched President Obama and Warren Buffett's ongoing association, from Buffett's official endorsement of Obama's 2008 presidential campaign to their sometimes differing views on economic policy. She says, like most family members, the president and Buffett may not always agree on everything, but this latest discovery confirming they are related may shed some light on why the two seem to see eye to eye on many issues. Yeah, really, Anastasia, do you think that might be the case? Well, let's read further. It says that Ancestry.com revealed that through the 17th century Frenchman named Marine Duval, who immigrated to Maryland from France in the 1650s, is President Obama's 9th great-grandfather and Buffett's 6th great-grandfather. According to historical records, Duval belonged to a religious sect called the Jacobites. Now, I'm seeing this religious sect, the Jacobites, come up a lot. I'm wondering if anybody's actually familiar and can go into the Jacobites and explain for the audience. I'd like for you to call in, and we'll put you right through. I haven't really studied the Jacobites, and I haven't really studied too much within the different sects of the Jesuits. So I'm still a little raw on that subject. But if anybody knows about the Jacobites, you can explain that. Maybe you'd like to call in. In the meantime, let's go to the Associated Press, reported on 3/26/2008. All right, you ready for this, folks? This could make for one odd family reunion. Barack Obama is a distant cousin of Brad Pitt, and Hillary Rodham Clinton is related to Pitt's girlfriend, Angelina Jolie. Researchers at the New England Genealogical Society found some remarkable family connections for the three presidential candidates. Democratic rivals Obama and Clinton, and Republican John McCain, all related. Clinton, who was of French-Canadian descent on her mother's side, is also a distant cousin of singers Madonna, Celine Dion, and Alanis Morissette. There again, did you think they got out there because they had good voices? No, folks. That's not how it works. That's not how the industry works. Obama, the son of a white woman from Kansas and a black man from Kenya, which is in dispute, can call 6 U.S. presidents, including George W. Bush, his cousins. McCain is a 6th cousin of the First Lady Laura Bush. Obama has a prolific presidential lineage that features Democrats and Republicans. His distant cousins include President George W. Bush and his father, Gerald Ford, Lyndon Johnson, Harry S. Truman, and James Madison. Other Obama cousins include Vice President Dick Cheney, British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill, and Civil War General Robert E. Lee. It's also interesting to note, by the way, that Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant were very, very close cousins. Yes. Christopher Child, who is a researcher at one of the larger genealogical sites, I don't remember which one, has spent the last 3 years tracing the candidates' genealogy along with senior research scholar Gary Boyd Roberts, author of the 1989 book Ancestors of American Presidents. Hillary Clinton's distant cousins include beatnik author Jack Kerouac and Camilla Parker Bowles, wife of Prince Charles of England. McCain's ancestry was more difficult to trace because the records on his relatives were not as complete as the records for the families of Obama and Clinton. Clinton's name is actually William Jefferson Blythe, by the way. Obama and President Bush are 10th cousins once removed, linked by Samuel Hinckley of Cape Cod, who died in 1662. Ben LaBolt, spokesman for the Obama campaign, declined to comment on the senator's ancestry. Clinton and Jolie are 9th cousins, twice removed, and Obama and Pitt are 9th cousins. The New England Genealogical Society was founded in 1845 and is the oldest and largest non-profit genealogical organization in the country. It's also interesting to note that genealogical studies and genealogy is not that big of a deal, or it used to not be, for the common man, because really, we didn't really have anything to do with it. Again, it's more valuable than gold to someone who is related to these folks and can prove the bloodline, the pure bloodline, because it allows them to be pretty and dress nicely and get lots of money for doing absolutely nothing. So, you know, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, it's very upsetting to me to have this knowledge, and I'm hoping that in sharing this, that you'll realize the ridiculousness of this whole political system we have set up, the ridiculousness of the actual false history and patriotism that we have for this so-called nation that we have, how we allowed it to be usurped by a central corporation outside of the States United, this little district in Washington, D.C. On October 13th, 2010, Ancestry.com reported that as Americans prepare to cast their votes in November's midterm election, we're announcing that several key political leaders and media personalities are more than mere political allies or political foes. They are actually related. Yes. Says it reveals that President Barack Obama is related to former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. Obama and Palin are 10th cousins through common ancestor John Smith, Smith being of the Joseph Smith clan that started the Mormon Church, a very close cousin of George Bush. The website also found that Obama is related to one of his most voracious critics, conservative radio talk show host Rush Limbaugh. I think we talked about this yesterday, but the next time you're listening to one of these famous radio show hosts, of which I will never be, just remember that they didn't get there because of their talent. Although Rush Limbaugh, with his arrogance, likes to think so. But trust me when I say these folks do not attain this position without being on a leash and without being of the blood. Says perhaps Rush will ease up on the president when he learns they are actually 10th cousin once removed via common ancestor Richmond Terrell. USA Today reported this as well on 10/12/2010. Palin's Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and conservative author Ann Coulter are also cousins through Englishman John Lathrop, who was exiled to the United States for becoming a minister of an illegal independent church. Now that sounds noble, but in fact those independent churches were something other than we think. All right, folks, we'll be back. Get into some more genealogical connections right up.
Through ideological hegemony. But if you think you need guns to stop tyranny, then what you waiting for? We've already stripped you of your liberty, privacy, civil rights, and dignity. You want some more?
Scientists have been battling to understand what this unappealing object is all about. What the object is all about.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy. All of our sensory systems. And then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like. It explodes
wrinkled like a walnut, and with the consistency of mushroom. Mushrooms. Like a walnut.
It is the most mysterious part of the human body, and yet it dominates the way we live our adult lives. It is the brain.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Corporation Nation. Again, we're talking about genealogy today. Let me give you some examples. Well, first, let's finish off what we were reading about Obama, just to give you the accurate history of his genealogy and why he is in power today. The Cape Cod Times on January 18th, 2009 reported the following about Obama. According to the family history compiled by the New England Historical Genealogical Society, Obama is a 10th-generation grandson of Edward Fitz Randolph. After 30 years in Barnstable, Edward Fitz Randolph and his family moved on to the Piscataway, New Jersey, where the family became involved in politics and helped found Princeton University. A gate bearing the Fitz Randolph name still stands on the Princeton campus. Now, this is very important because all of the presidents of these universities were all bloodline cousins. All the people who started all of the secret societies were also the bloodline relations of this group we're talking about. The Fitz-Randolph connection to the Obama bloodline launched centuries later when Edward Fitz-Randolph's great-granddaughter, Prudence, married a man named, you'll love this, Shabeal Smith, whose daughter Mary married Jonathan Dunham, joining the Fitz-Randolphs with the Dunham clan. Of course, that's Obama's mother's last name. Now, I want you to note that the name Shabeal is an Israeli Jewish name and not a common American name in any way. The meaning of Shabeal in Israel actually means returning captivity or seat of God. Isn't that interesting? Most often used as a male or boy's name. 5 generations later, Jonathan Dunham's great-great-great-great-granddaughter, Anne Dunham, gave birth to President Barack Hussein Obama. Well, he wasn't president quite yet. He had to wait till that age. Not long after the Fitz-Randolph family arrived in Barnstable, the Hinckley clan from England also settled on the Cape. Samuel Hinckley, a juror and surveyor of highways, brought his wife and 4 children from Scituate, to Barnstable in 1640. Bought a home and launched what would become one of the Cape's longest surviving families. Several of Samuel's children stayed in Barnstable long after his death in 1662. His son Thomas went on to become the governor of Plymouth Colony, and his daughter Susanna married a man named John Smith, joining the Hinkleys with the Smith family, which eventually joined the Dunham clan, leading to Anne Dunham and Barack Obama. And this again is why Joseph Smith of the Mormon Church and Bush and Obama are all very close cousins. Now, interestingly enough, also listed on the Family Forest website, which is another genealogical website, if my computer will allow me to go there. Let's see here. We show not only Joseph Smith and John Hinckley, and there's John D. Rockefeller too, but we also show L. Ron Hubbard as the 10th cousin of Mr. George Bush, making the founder of both the Mormon Church and of Scientology very, very close cousins. So, where do we go from here? There's so many people to cover, so many names. Let's talk about marriages. Now, we talked a little bit about this, but you have to understand that these people, when they get married, they wish to keep the blood flowing. They wish to have children that will be just as successful as them, only not because of their talent, not because of their education, but because of their blood. So let's talk about people who marry their cousins. How about Rudy Giuliani, mayor of New York? He and his second cousin, once removed, Regina Peruggi, were married. John Adams and his third cousin, Abigail Smith. Johann Sebastian Bach and his second cousin, Maria Barbara Bach. Hosea Bartlett, second signer of the United States Declaration of Independence, and his first cousin, Mary Bartlett. John C. Calhoun, seventh vice president of the United States, and his first cousin, once removed, Floride Calhoun. Benedict Swingate Calvert, third proprietor governor of Maryland and father of Eleanor Calvert, and his first cousin, once removed, Elizabeth Calvert. Charles Carroll of Carrollton, the only Roman Catholic signer of the United States Declaration of Independence, and his second cousin, Mary Darnell, were married. Charles Darwin and his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. Andrew Jackson Donaldson and his first cousin, Emily Donaldson. Of course, he was a vice presidential candidate. Andrew Jackson and his first cousin, Elizabeth Martin Randolph, were also married. Albert Einstein and his first cousin, through his mother, and second cousin, through his father, Elsa Lowenthal Einstein. Alfred DuPont, great-grandson of the DuPont founder, and his cousin by marriage, Bessie Gardner, as well as his second cousin, Alicia Bradford Maddox. You see how this is going. You see that to keep the blood pure, you must marry within. We always equate this to just the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and maybe a few others, but you got to understand, folks, this is all throughout the bloodline. This is how these people have become famous. This is how these people have become CEOs of corporations. This is how people have become famous authors and poets and leaders of movements like the feminist movement and the abolition movement. Okay, those were all cousins. I can't stress this enough. William Greenleaf Eliot, founder of the Washington University in St. Louis, and grandfather of course, poet T.S. Eliot, married his first cousin, once removed. Let's see, it says, but more notable is that his father, mother, and wife were all first cousins of each other. William Ellerly, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and his first cousin, once removed, Abigail Carey. Now remember, all these people are related to each other as well. William Crownsmanshield Endicott, former U.S. Secretary of War, and his first cousin, Ellen Peabody. John F. Fitzgerald, former mayor of Boston and grandfather of John F. Kennedy, and his second cousin, Mary Josephine Hannon. Oh, no, don't pick on the Kennedys. The Kennedys are heroes. No, folks, they're just the same old bloodline doing the same old things. There are no heroes. If the Bible tells you one thing, it is that not to put your faith in men. Okay? So let's not do that. Benjamin Harrison, the fifth American Revolutionary leader, and his second cousin, Elizabeth Bassett. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr., the poet, and his second cousin, Amelia Lee Jackson. Stephen Hopkins, another signer of the Declaration of Independence, and his second cousin, Sarah Scott. Jesse James, another bloodline cousin, and his first cousin, Zerelda Z. Mims. Thomas Jefferson, yes, Thomas Jefferson too, and his third cousin, Martha Wales. Then there's Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis, kind of an interesting story. I'll see if I can find his background. Basically, he married his first cousin, once removed, Myra Gale Brown. The only problem was Brown was only 13 years old at the time. That caused a few complications there. Doesn't matter, though. It's his first cousin. It's in the family. It's all good. John A. Macdonald, first Prime Minister of Canada, and his first cousin, Isabella Clark. Edgar Allan Poe and his cousin, Virginia Clem. Franklin D. Roosevelt, U.S. President, and fifth cousin, once removed. Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, Martin Van Buren, former president, and his first cousin once removed, Hannah Hose, H.G. Wells and his first cousin, and on and on and on. All right, folks, we'll be back. Stay with us.
Is this real, versus this ride? The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love.
All right, folks, welcome back. So as we mentioned, Mr. Jerry Lee Lewis, famous piano player, kind of crazy, married his first cousin that was 13 years old. Lewis was born to the family of Elmo and Marnie Lewis in Faraday in the Concordia Parish in eastern Louisiana. And he began playing piano with in his youth with his two cousins, country music singer Mickey Gilley and TV evangelist Jimmy Swaggart. Folks, there are no exceptions here, I'm telling you. His older cousin, who he was influenced by, was a gentleman named Carl McVoy, his older cousin, who later recorded with Bill Black's Combo. So, again, I don't know how to explain, because we believe that we live, again, in this democracy. We believe that there is a chance for us all. We believe that we have equal opportunity and all of this thing, but it's just not the case, folks. I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you, but there is no randomness in who becomes a celebrity. There is no randomness in who becomes an appointed CEO and who gets massive funding to start corporations and banks and all that. Okay, the bankers and the presidents are all one family. We can blame things on the bankers, or we can say, let's blame it on who's really the problem here, which is one family, one ring to rule them all. Let's take a call. Now, I asked some callers. Hopefully they can give us some insight on the Jacobites, a subject that I have not studied in any detail. Let's take Chris from Las Vegas. How you doing, Chris?
I am well, Clint, although I am quite titillated by your rudimentary esoteric suggestions and insinuations.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Can you tell us about Jacobites?
There are a couple that you didn't touch on there. One, we know that the Bushes and Cheneys have relations to bloody old England and Britain and to the House of Brown Harriman and their banking cabal.
Absolutely.
And also relate back to the House of Benton, spelled Bentin, which, because of its German inclinations of sound, was changed to Windsor, of the House of Windsor, to make it sound more English during the war, so they wouldn't be preyed upon by their English people who were being bombed by the Germans.
Certainly, and there's a great documentary that someone actually reminded me of today, about a guy that was actually trying to figure out, because I think it was James V was a bastard, and the Plantagenet line was massacred by them, and the real actual person who's supposed to be the bloodline king of England actually lives in Australia as just a common dude. And he did all the research and he tracked him down. And this is the person that's actually the most eligible person to be king. Really fascinating documentary. I wish I could remember the name of it, but good stuff. So yeah, I mean, but again, I can't look at that and say, oh, well, I'd rather have that person as king than this person. I find this all horribly disgusting. I find that the concept that someone claims better blood than I or you or anyone on this earth, I find that very distasteful. In fact, it makes my blood boil.
Well, apparently the familial bloods were boiling as they delved into their incestuous dalliances amongst their family members, and it may speak to some of the depravity and hallucinations that seem to permeate these self-deemed elitists who want to keep the bloodlines confined within their familial circles.
Yeah, it's disturbing. Anything else you wanted to say, Chris?
Well, I did want to suggest two other little things, if you don't mind. It's suggested that G.H.W. Bush was likely one Georgy Schraf, S-C-H-R-A-F, sometimes two Fs, and was part of the Hitler-esque inner circle, as exposed by Otto Skorzeny, another one of the inner circle members there. And he had apparently been mentored by Nikolai Tesla and been a very vexatious sort of young lad, and served as the prototypical model for Curious George from Dr. Seuss. And the last little tidbit for you, I can't help, and I suspect your other listeners and yourself may have observed, a striking resemblance between Barack Hussein Obama and Akhenaten, the Pharaoh C king of Egypt, or Kemet, and it has been suggested by some there may have been some transhumanist geneticist dabblings that may have had to do with his gestation and breeding, specifically for this place and time, that speak to that coincidental physiognomic appearance.
Well, those are things that I can't poo-poo because the technology seems to be there. So we can only leave that up to speculation. There is some very interesting research. I'll have to pull it up. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's it's called the Barack Obama's Real Father, or Stories. I can't remember what his book is called, but I'll have to pull that up so I'm not misquoting it. But interesting. Thanks for the call, Chris. I guess the point I really want to make, and I find this to be very important, because again, when we're talking about diseases, when we're talking about biological weapons, we've all heard through the way that they're designing illnesses, designing diseases and viruses and biological weapons to hit a certain race or a certain blood. And that's very important because, again, 85 to 90% of the people in the entire world are Rh positive. That leaves about 10 to 15% is Rh negative. And, of course, it's a fairly it's not a well-known fact, but it's a pretty known fact that the bloodline is a negative, Rh negative or monkey gene negative blood. And I think this has a lot to do with another subject I'm really interested in, which is prions and how those interact and protect the cells from disease. But these people that we always hear making all these quotes, I want to be very clear here that when you hear, let's say, Jacques Cousteau, another bloodline family member, out of the Demanding Accountability United Nations Development Fund for Women, page 84 through 85 in 1994, when he says in order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day, he's not talking about his own blood, folks. He's not talking about his particular family. He's talking about all of us common folk out here. When Ted Turner from CNN says a total world population of 250 to 300 million people, a 95% decline from present levels would be ideal, he's not talking about his family. He's talking about you and me. And remember, these are the people that have power. These are the people that have started all of these biological terrorist corporations to create all of these military-grade weapons. So we, as the 95%, or at least the 90 to 85%, we should be very concerned because that means we are going to be on the list. You see, this is no joke. This is a very, very, very serious thing. Let's see. Still looking for some information on the Jacobites. Let's take Let's see. Looks like Matt in Missouri.
Hey, Clint, love your show, even though I've yet to catch an entire show yet. With my work, I'm in and out of my truck, so I don't get to hear it all, but can't help you out much on the Jacobites. The only thing I really know about them is they were the ones that led the French Revolution. They were somehow sponsored by or paid by the Illuminati during the French Revolution. They wanted to go to a 10-day work week. They wanted to end the family. They had all kinds of crazy ideas. And in fact, in one of George Washington's letters, he even acknowledged the Jacobites and said he wasn't contrary to their views.
So basically another controlled revolution. Notice that the French Revolution and the American Revolution were virtually at the same time. So, all right, well, stay with us, Matt. We'll be back here for the second half of Genealogical Immersion.
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Choose the power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Corporation Nation radio program. I'm Clint Richardson, your host, and we are talking about genealogy today. Here's an interesting one for you. You know, it's funny. I used to think these people were. You know, I used to fall for this. I used to just love looking at these beautiful women on screen. And then I started actually looking, and, you know, beauty is only skin deep. And I start watching these people and the way they act and the horrible roles they play, the nudity and all these things, and I realize they are not worthy of such glamorous, you know, this fallacious worship that we give to them. So let's talk about Angelina Jolie. Now, again, we have these royal couples in America. Of course, this one being Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. That is basically America's royal couple, if you will. Who is Angelina Jolie? That's the interesting part here. Well, turns out that according to Genie.com, they do an interesting series called Look Who's Related. If you type in Genie, G-E-N-I, and then Look Who's Related, and then type in a name, you'll probably find something, a famous name. You'll probably find something that's been done. This one is Look Who's Related, Angelina Jolie and Cleopatra. Oh, isn't that interesting? It was announced a few months ago that actress Angelina Jolie will take on the role of Cleopatra in an upcoming biopic. How unironic. We thought it would be interesting to see how Angelina Jolie is related to the Egyptian queen, and look what we found. Cleopatra is Angelina Jolie's 57th great-grandmother. Oh, but no, she got there on her own merits. Honest. She didn't have any blood that helped her get there. And then it goes on. It shows how she's related to some other famous people. Of course, Cleopatra, the 57th great-grandmother. Beyonce Knowles is her 11th cousin. Let's see. This doesn't have anything to do with color, by the way, folks. It's the establishment and the passing of blood type. Remember that. Cher is Angelina Jolie's 13th cousin. We talked about Beyonce Knowles, and Johnny Depp is Angelina Jolie's 18th cousin, twice removed. And of course, her other blood relation, Brad Pitt, here is listed as her 21st cousin. But I think if we looked real hard, we could probably find a closer connection than that. The point is, again, our top paid people in Hollywood are not there because of their talent. While they may be talented, that is not the root of their royal celebrity. Anyway, back to Matt in Missouri. You still with us?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What else?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, what else you want to say?
Yeah, I was glad you brought this subject up last night because in my mind there's always been a huge disconnect between the Pilgrims and Puritans and the Founding Fathers. They showed up here, about 200 years before the Founding Fathers came along? So to me there was always a big disconnect between those groups. I knew somehow or another that Ben Franklin, George Washington, and all those had to be tied back to England. They had to be some type of royalty. But you're bringing up a really, really key point as far as the bloodline goes, and that goes all the way back to the book of Genesis, to the time of the flood. And the flood came because Noah and his family were pure in their generations, and the others were not. So I think you're hitting on a major, crucial point that has been a thread throughout all of human history. And Yeshua himself said, before the Son of Man returns, it'll be as it was in the days of Noah. I think we're seeing, you're getting a pretty good glimpse and a good handle on what that was all about.
Well, and like I said, there's so many. What really concerns me, my friend, is all these tailored diseases. Because my other area of studies is into vaccines and all these different patents that they're coming out with all these designer viruses and diseases and cancers and all these things, prions. So that's one of the scary parts, the scary aspects of this, is to consider that these people have their fingers on the trigger of just about anything they want to wipe a majority of the population out. And they are not only the corporate owners of those things, they are also the patent holders and the regulators. They are the government as well. So you have a fixed closed-loop system that has not changed for thousands and probably thousands of years. So it is a frightening thing.
Absolutely. Just look at Bill Gates and his father. I mean, Bill Gates, he's nobody special. He's not good looking. Didn't even go to college, for crying out loud. Look where he ended up because of his dad. And I think just as important as the blood is the entire aspect of the DNA, and that's where they've got those weapons aimed for, is certain DNA types as well as blood types. But yeah, we're in some pretty dangerous territory, and like I said before, I think we're talking biblical proportions here.
Well, and it also depends on the ability of us common blood folk to wake up from this, to really start grasping that we have been enslaved to this family for generation after generation after generation. We've been pledged. We've been used as faith and credit. We've been used in usury and all other forms of, feudalism to make these people wealthy beyond our dreams. And I think that has to change. I'm sorry if that's sacrilegious. I'm sorry if that offends those who just adore the stories like I read at the beginning with these beautiful women in dresses that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars when people are starving. I don't find that to be a correct course of action for a benevolent ruler. Not that I think there is such a thing. So, hopefully this message that I'm putting out will get through to people. And, it's the function of law. These are the lawmakers. These are the people who wrote all the constitutions, not just the one that we call the Constitution, but all of the Masonic constitutions, the compacts, the Mayflower Compact, and all of them before. They're a dime a dozen. I mean, since the Magna Charta, these people have been writing these things. So, anyway, anything else, Matt?
Just one last dumb question, if you don't mind me asking. I mean, do you not believe that there is a literal God, or do you not take the Bible literally, or how do you interpret it? Because you may have touched on that before, but I just haven't heard you say.
Well, I I grew up in the Methodist Church, and again, when I think of a church, because of my experience in that church, it was in actually Sacramento, California. I don't think of church as something. Because of my experience, I always thought church was there to help people. I always thought the church was there. In fact, that was what the Methodists were known for, was trying to reform the church back to helping and being a positive thing to help the needy, feed the poor and all that stuff. So that's kind of what I thought the church was for. I thought we gathered on Sundays to worship just because it was like almost like a board of directors meeting. It was a requirement. And so I always thought the church was about fellowship and helping people. And that was my idea of the church. And I actually think that's the way it should be if you're going to have a church like that. Anyway, I'll continue on the other side. Stay with us.
No shoes on their feet. How's the people living in the street? Oh, there's a solution.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Well, maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world. And so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind?
All right, folks, welcome back. And you're in the Corporation Nation. I'm Clint Richardson. The question has been posed. What is my belief in God? And the best answer that I can give, the most logical, reasonable, and honest answer that I can give is that I don't know. I don't claim to be arrogant enough that I could possibly know God if God exists. I do have an answer that I do like to give people, and that is simply that if God exists, He exists despite my belief. He exists despite your belief. He exists despite anybody's belief. And so the belief or that feeling of righteousness and holiness is not, I don't believe, a prerequisite to the kingdom of heaven, if you will, whatever that be. What I do believe is a prerequisite is to follow the commandments and to follow the law that was written down in the Bible. And we've talked about that a lot, the natural law, in other words, the teachings of Jesus Christ, the anointed, which has been usurped by the vicar or the replacement of Christ, the falsely anointed through oils, which is the popes and the queens and all of that. There's a very, very sincere path laid out in the words of Jesus Christ that if you read it, you can see the maxims of law. You can see everything laid out in how to live without government and how to live without the church, without, in other words, organized corporate religions. And, I believe that if you walk that path, it is the path to God, which, you might say God is nature, following the law of nature or the natural law. So it's a subject that, again, I believe that I don't know is the most intelligent answer you can have if you don't know. There's a lot of things about this genealogy that I'm reading, about the bloodlines, for instance, the Jacobites, that I do not know. I wish to know and I wish to seek further knowledge, but I can very much safely say that I don't know how this works. I don't know how the club is organized. I only know that genealogy is the most cherished and revered thing amongst this particular bloodline because it is what allows them to be in power. Now, how that happens, I honestly do not know. I do not know. I can only go by all of the research that I've pulled up, and it's all the research of other people. So, we anyway, let's go on to how about John in Canada? Hello, John.
Lance, how you doing? Your points are well taken. I've got 3 points to make, and I'll be really, really quick. Your first one about Jolie, she's a CFR member. Your first question about Jacobites, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. that was the rudimentary organization of communism, that to take down the royal family, to take away the cohesive or probably represented symbol of unity, take that down and start breaking down culture. So Jacobitism is like is a form of communism. They buggered off to Scotland, and they got Bonnie Prince Charlie to challenge the crown and all that. But regardless, it's a very involved history, and like that. But I want to talk to you about the genealogy thing that you were on about, because like when you talk about presidents and that they all seem to be related, there is, and I don't know how true this is. I've done a little bit of research, and I'm finding conflicting reports. But and this is that the Pierce family, and in particular, it was Pauline Pierce, the mother of Barbara Pierce, who married George H. Bush. She was in the 20s messing around with Crawley. And this is a very satanic group that they had sex magic rituals. They had all kinds of wacky things I don't pretend to understand, because I really don't want to get close to it, other than to say, he was the wickedest man in the world, like the way he self-describes himself. But
are you telling me you don't want to join the Synagogue of Satan?
Well, you know what? Like, I've kicked out so many people. Like, as soon as I know that they're Freemasonry, like, associated, or any of these subgroups of this group, I just say, okay, that's the end of that. I got to move on, because, like, I will not tolerate anything to do with this. But regardless, Pauline Pierce, she was the wife of Marvin Pierce, and he was like McCall's Corporation, big deal publisher. And she was very adventurous, and she apparently left 2 children behind in France in the 20s. And she came back home pregnant, and that is Barbara Bush. And if you take a look at her freaking picture and put it side by side with Aleister Crowley, there is like an amazing similarity. And it was only put together later as Barbara Bush got older that this has got to be brought out. That not only is this a bloodline, it's a mixing of satanic whores. Did you get me?
I've certainly heard this before, and I actually tried to delve into it, and I found basically arguments on both sides. I couldn't necessarily, of course, prove the point, but it is certainly an interesting topic, and worth noting whether it's actually true or untrue. And as far as Aleister Crowley goes, yeah, you're talking about the
self-proclaimed
most evil man, and yeah, I don't know, and again, that's my best answer on that one, is that I could not come to a definite conclusion, and this is kind of
me neither, Clint. I get conflicting reports too.
It's definitely worth bringing up, and I think half the people would be appalled, and half would be that are followers of this stuff would be very happy to hear that that's the case. So,
well, you're talking about bloodlines, and like, what is it that is hanging these people together? And it is not the God of Jesus' God, like his father. It's about another father. It's another God, and like to sort them out? Like, how do you do it? Like, I'm with you. I've studied the Bible for the last 3 years, and I'm coming to the point where, there's an awful lot of stuff that doesn't make sense in the Old Testament, but it comes together in the Old Testament. I think there are different gods there.
Certainly. We certainly see the mention of Baal, and we see the mention of Moloch quite a bit when we look into this as well. It's actually frightening. Thanks for the call, my friend. We'll be back after these messages.
Derivatives, quantitative easing, trade imbalances, recession, low GDP, nations close to collapsing, and subprime loans, foreclosed homes, and people's taxes spent to bail out too big to fail AAA banks again. Fear levels rising as the US crash seems imminent, having smashed the debt ceiling of 14 trillion despite protests and clashes in Athens streets. The IMF imposed structurally unjust programs in Greece.
All right, folks, welcome back.
Entered our language from the Greek economy, meaning household.
I was looking at this long list I have. What I did was I went to a certain website, and I think it was Wargs, WARGS, I think it's .com, and they have a total breakdown of genealogy on Bush and Obama and Romney and all these people. The Bush cousin, the list of Bush cousins will take you hours and hours to go through, but I wanted to give you some examples of what were listed as Bush's cousins. Let's take, besides all the presidents, the vice presidents, their wives, his mother. Let's talk about foreign presidents and prime ministers. We mentioned Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, as we know, the UK prime minister. First prime minister of France, Maurice de Talleyrand Perigord. Karl Grieve von Moltke was the Danish minister to the United States. Clemens Kettler, Imperial German Diplomatic Corps, serving in China, Washington, D.C., and Mexico. Prince Sergei Platonovich Obolensky, Russian prince and vice chairman of the board of the Hilton Hotels Corporation. I'm going to butcher some of these names. I apologize. Bernard Forbes, 8th Earl of Grenard, House of the Lords, title of Baron Gennard, and Lord-in-Waiting to King Edward VII. He was the government whip in the House of Lords, etc. Richard Bedford Bennett, the first Viscount Bennett, Canadian Prime Minister. Sir Robert Laird Borden, Canadian Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Queen's University, passed the War Measures Act. John Singleton Copley, first Baron Lyndhurst, born in Boston, 3 times Lord Chancellor of Great Britain, Lord Chief Baron of the Executor in the House of Lords. Now, if you can possibly go through a list like this and still believe that there is a sense of sovereignty in the United States when all of its leaders, its presidents, its senators, its congressmen, its legal outfit as well, the Supreme Court justices, all cousins of the president. If you could possibly think that there is a separation of powers between all of these countries, then you must be insane. That's all I can say, because this is a family affair. John Singleton Copley, I think we just covered. Edward Kenelm Digby, 11th and 5th Baron Digby, succeeded his father to take the seat in the House of Lords. Lord Lieutenant of Dorset, Knight of the Garter, Francisco Silvela, Spanish Prime Minister, President of Spain, leader of the Conservative Party there, concluded the German-Spanish Treaty in 1899, selling the remainder of the Spanish East Indies to Germany, to the German royal family that we spoke of earlier. Sir Charles Tupper, 6th Canadian Prime Minister, one of the fathers of the Confederation of Canada, similar to the founding fathers of America. Same thing. Same thing. George Clemenceau, French Premier, Prime Minister of France. one of the principal architects of the Treaty of Versailles at the Paris Peace Conference. Thomas Masaryk, butchering that name, president of Czechoslovakia, socialist and philosopher, advocate of independence during World War I for Czechoslovakia, and the founder and first president of Czechoslovakia. You have Jan Garrigue, I can't say the name, but the same last name, Czechoslovakia foreign minister. John George Diefenbaker, Canadian Prime Minister. Again, these are all cousins of George Bush, and all the rest. Escrain Hamilton Childers, of the fourth President of Ireland, member of the Parliament there, Minister for Post and Telegraphs, etc. Maurice Harold Macmillan, first Earl of Stockton, UK Prime Minister, and member of the House of Commons, etc., etc. All right. So again, these are the cousins of your current and past presidents. There cannot be a sense of sovereignty when your politicians are of the same blood, of the same family, after the same goals, creating things like the United Nations, etc. It's just not possible. Let's take a call from, looks like we got Fred in Michigan. Fred, how you doing?
Good. Speaking of the UN, Kofi Annan married a woman by the name of Longren, Longren. I think that was around 1986. Who is connected to the Rothschild family, of course.
Naturally.
Let's see here. This is one of my Synagogue of Satan sonnets. Shoot. Okay, so Mayor Amschel Rothschild, 1790, makes this bold proclamation: "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." 1791, Rothschilds gain control of America's money system via Rothschild agent Alexander Hamilton. The charter is established for 20 years. Within the first 5 years of the central bank, the American government borrows $8,200,000 from Rothschild. Prices in the country increase 72%. In relation to this excessive borrowing and inflation, Thomas Jefferson, then Secretary of State, makes this declaration: "I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to our Constitution, removing from the federal government its money borrowing power." Now we go back to 1744, February 23rd. Mayor Amschel Bauer, born in Frankfurt, Germany, son of Moses Amschel Bauer, moneylender, proprietor of a counting house. Moses Amschel Bauer places a red sign above the entrance door to his counting house. The red hexagram, which geometrically, numerically translates to 666, which 2 centuries later ends up on the Israeli flag. 1760, Mayor Amschel Bauer works for a bank owned by the Oppenheimers in Hanover, Germany. I wondered where the Bauer Rothschild family got its, quote, meager, humble start. Well, it was with the Oppenheimers, Hanover, Germany. Highly successful, becomes junior partner, while working at the bank, is acquainted with General von Estor. Following his father's death, Bauer returns to Frankfurt to take over his father's business. Mayor Amschel Bauer recognizes the significance of the red hexagram, changes his name from Bauer to Rothschild. After the red hexagram were signs signifying 666, hanging over the entrance door. Rot is German for red. SCHILD is German for shield or sign. Well, under this new identity, Mayor Amschel Rothschild discovers that General von Estor is now attached to the Count of Prince William IX of Hesse-Hanau. one of the richest royal houses in Europe, which gained its wealth by the hiring of Hessian soldiers of foreign countries for vast profit, a practice that continues today in the form of exporting United Nations peacekeeping troops.
Well, go back to that first quote you said, which was the quote about "I care not, give me the power to create a nation's currency," and I care not. Can't quote it, of course, off the top of my head.
Yes, 1790. That's right.
The important word there is nations, because we're coming into a globalist function here, where we're going to have the World Bank. The World Bank is already basically they're all the currencies are using the same encryption, the same symbology called the Orion constellation, the Orion seal, which are the little yellow numbers that you see on the dollar bills, the $10 bills, and the $20 bills. And they're in the form of the Orion Constitution. I think there's about 100 or so different currencies with that same counterfeiting thing on there. But the important part there is that the currency is quickly becoming a world currency. It's quickly becoming a United Nations currency. So once that happens, no nation will be able to withstand this. And that's I think that's more apropos to the quote than it is just a single nation, because they're organizing in this way through the World Bank. So we'll be back, folks. Stay with us. Welcome back. Final segment here of our little genealogical discussion here. I don't know. I don't have a guest scheduled tomorrow. We might even talk some more about this tomorrow. Maybe you're getting tired of it. I don't know. I can't get enough myself. Let me just give you some other examples. We're talking about bankers and capitalists and financiers, and we always like to put them in their own category, even though they can't exist without government, because of course the money comes and is property of government. Banks are allowed to then utilize the rules of the Federal Reserve to create as much money as they want. It's just wonderful, isn't it? More cousins listed from George Bush. How about John Pierpont Morgan and son John Pierpont Morgan Jr., of course, banker financier of J.P. Morgan Chase Corporation. John Davidson Rockefeller, known capitalist, and David Rockefeller, William Rockefeller, bankers and financiers, of course. David Levitt, a banker and financier, president of the American Exchange Bank of New York during the financial panic of 1837. Samuel Eliot, banker and merchant, president of the Massachusetts Bank. How about Mr. Timothy Geithner? Well, sure, we always say Jew. But actually, he's a bloodline cousin, central banker, economist, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, 75th, and current United States Secretary of Treasury. Actually, I don't remember if he's still a Treasury or not. Jeremiah Mason, U.S. Senator from New Hampshire, member of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, Attorney General of New Hampshire, President of the United States Bank. How about Joseph Wharton, industrialist and financier in mining, manufacturing, and education, founded the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and, of course, the Bethlehem Steel Company. He, interestingly, of course, when you're lobbying your cousin, it's not so difficult, but he lobbied for nickel to be used in U.S. coinage, of course, because he owned the large steel company that was mining nickel. And he had a virtual monopoly on nickel, mining production in the United States for nickel. So there's that story. Hoyt Sherman is another one. He was the Bank of Iowa and was appointed by President Lincoln as the paymaster in the Union Army. George Washington Riggs is another one. He was a banker known as the President Banker from Riggs Bank. His reputation was that of financing the Mexican-American War, making very large profits off that death and dismemberment. Member of the Board of Aldermen of the District of Columbia, and so on, railroads and such. So, I mean, you have a very long list of people, obviously, that are getting to where they are getting because of the blood. I mean, here's another list of industrialists and tycoons that I extracted from this long list of cousins of George Bush. Samuel Colt, gun manufacturer, the Vanderbilt family, railroad tycoons. Gloria Vanderbilt, of course, developer of blue jeans and other stuff. William Avery Rockefeller founded the Standard Oil Company. John Davidson Rockefeller, industrialist, founded the Standard Oil Company. Sidney Biddle Burroughs was, of course, known for her escort service, using the stage name Sheila Devon, later became known as the Mayflower Madam. Well, yes, of course, that was cousins of the folks who came over here on the Mayflower. Now she's a management consultant and writer. Alicia Graves Otis, elevator manufacturer for Otis Elevator Company, inventor of the safety device that prevents falling for the cables. Herbert Henry Dow, founder of Dow Chemical. Jason J. Gould, Union Pacific Railroads, etc. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Harvey Samuel Firestone, founder of Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. Robert Warren Miller, duty-free airport shop tycoon. Let's see. Marshall Field, department stores. Henrietta Rowland Russell Green, actually, tycoon, nicknamed the Witch of Wall Street. First American woman to make a substantial impact on Wall Street after inheriting $7.5 million from her Quaker father and mother, Edward Mott Robinson and Abby Howland. Interestingly, the Howland chart is a very famous chart showing, actually that's the Joseph Smith chart with George Bush. Henry Clay Folger, I think we know the last name Folger, but that was also Standard Oil as well. Folger Coffee. Alfred Fuller, founder of Fuller Brush Company. How about the Post family, cereal manufacturers? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The Tiffany Company, Theodore Newton Vail, president of AT&T. All of these are cousins of George Bush. How about Hugh Bancroft? We know Hugh Bancroft, president of Dow Jones and Company. So, Abelhead Shanghai Pierce. Of course, the last name Pierce is familiar. That's the Texas rancher, the famous big Texas rancher of the Pierce family. Charles Goodnight, another large rancher in Texas, newspaper man and bank. And it just goes on and on. This is a huge, huge list that it would take me 3 shows to read because it's so long. But the point is, again, these corporations that are founded, these huge, including the Astor family, they are not happening randomly. You and I, as the common blood folk out here, would not just be able to start something so powerful and get to a political position where we could actually publicly oppose this type of nepotism. Fred, do we still have you on?
Yeah, we do.
All right, well.
Kofi Annan, in 1984, married a woman by the name of Nan Lagergren, who is a Rothschild relative. And Kofi Annan is African American, as I recall. And that was recorded by Andrew Hitchcock in the Synagogue of Satan, 1997. But in 1875, let's see here, this is very fascinating. Well, you know what? Who was it? 1841, was it Garfield? Who was the president? No, that was John Tyler. 1841, John Tyler vetoes the act to renew the charter of the Bank of the United States, the Rothschild Bank of the United States, and he then receives hundreds of death threats. Then there was Garfield. Garfield lasted, what was that, 100 days or 200 days, because he made a statement regarding the fact that there was an elitist cabal of financiers who control the money system. And he then stated that they are the primary perpetrators of recession, depression, inflation, deflation. And so he was murdered either 100 or 200 days into his presidency. That was Garfield.
Well, see, but I still have to say President James A. Garfield was eighth cousin 4 times removed of John Kerry and 4th cousin 4 times removed of George Bush. So he didn't get to his position of power by complaining. I mean, this is what I say. All throughout history, we have people like Kennedy and Jackson, the mythology about Jackson going against the central bank. Even the quotes from Wilson where he says he regrets forming the Federal Reserve are complete crap. They are the source of those quotes are actually I'll tell you what, I'll get into that tomorrow because it's fascinating to actually see some of this. So that's why I say we can't look at these people as heroes, because they are getting into their positions of power not by merit, not by respect, not by doing anything, but by being blood. And that's why I say I don't think we can look at any of these people as heroes. Appreciate the history lesson there, my friend. I know that we like to pick on the Rothschilds all the time, but I'm here to tell you Rothschilds are just one little piece of a massive, massive, giant puzzle. And yes, there's a lot of wealth there, but it's a blood thing. Anyway, folks, thanks for the call, Fred, and join me tomorrow. Maybe we'll continue this, maybe we won't. I guess it depends on what people want. Take care.